Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the very foundation of how we describe things in Mandarin Chinese. We're going to be focusing on two of the most basic, but also surprisingly deep characters, the words for big and small. But before we jump right in, let's just pause and think about this for a second. When you learn to describe something in a new language, are you just swapping out one word for another? Or are you actually learning a completely new way to see and organize the world around you? Well, I think it's the latter, and I'm pretty sure that by the end of our doc today, you're going to agree with me. So our journey is going to start with a really simple concept, size. Now, why start here? Well, because describing how big or small something is one of the very first things we try to do when we're learning a language. It's something we can all relate to, and for Mandarin, it's really the perfect gateway to understanding some of the core ideas behind the characters, the grammar, and even the culture. All right, so let's get right to it. On the screen, you see our two main characters for the day. First up, we have da. The pronunciation is da. Now, really pay attention to the tone here. It's the fourth tone, which is a sharp, falling sound. Think of it like a quick, decisive command. Da. It goes straight down. Now, on the other side, we have xiǎo. This one is pronounced xiǎo, and this is the third tone, which has this distinct falling, then rising quality. You kind of dip down, then scoop back up. Xiǎo. Let's try that. First, the sharp one. Da. Now the scooping one. Xiǎo. You know, getting these tones right from the get-go is absolutely crucial, so don't feel silly exaggerating them at first. It really helps. Okay, so a really common mistake for students is to just try and memorize these characters as a bunch of random lines. But if you really want to learn them, to make them part of your vocabulary, you need to understand their story. You see, most Chinese characters aren't random at all. They actually started out as little pictures. So let's look at the story behind da. It's fascinating. I mean, look closely at the character. Can you almost see a little stick figure in there? You have the line for the body and two legs. And what's this person doing? They're stretching their arms out as wide as they can. You know, imagine someone telling a story about a fish they caught. They'd say, it was this big, and spread their arms out. That exact gesture, that feeling of bigness, is literally captured forever in this character. Da, big. And now let's compare that to xiǎo. Its origin couldn't be more different. The ancient version of this character was just 3 tiny separate marks. Think of them as little grains of sand, or maybe tiny seeds, something scattered and, well, small. Over thousands of years, those little dots smoothed out into the strokes we see today, but that core idea is still there, smallness, something tiny. So you have da, which is big and human, and then you have xiǎo, which is granular and particular. And this really is the key takeaway here. Don't just see lines on a screen. When you see da, I want you to see that person with their arms stretched wide. When you see xiǎo, picture those little grains of sand. This isn't just a simple memory trick, you guys. It's a whole different way of thinking that is going to help you learn thousands of characters. You're basically connecting with the ancient logic that's baked right into the language. Excellent work. So, now that we have this really deep feel for the characters themselves, let's put them to work. It's time to move on from the individual building blocks and see how they actually function inside a proper sentence. So, how do we use da and xiǎo to describe an object? Okay, here's our example sentence for today. Let's try saying it together, but let's go really slow, piece by piece. First, 这, that's a fourth tone. 是, also a fourth tone. Then, 大, our fourth tone again. Then, 红色, that's a second tone followed by a fourth tone. 的, that's a neutral tone, so it's super light and quick. And finally, 苹果, a second tone, then a third tone. Okay, now let's try to say it a bit more naturally. 这是大红色的苹果. One of the biggest mistakes students make here is they rush those first 3 words. 这是大. You have to make sure each one has that distinct falling tone. Another tricky spot is the 果 in 苹果. Because it's a third tone at the end of a phrase, you have to do the full dip and rise. 果. Now, let's break down how we actually built that sentence. This slide shows you the fundamental structure for describing things in Mandarin, and it's incredibly logical. In English, we say big red apple, but Mandarin has a super consistent order. First, you start with your subject, 这是, which means this is. Step 2, you add the size adjective, so da. In Mandarin, size almost always gets priority. Step 3, you add any other descriptions, like the color, 红色. Step 4, and this is so important, you add the structural particle de. And finally, step 5, you put the noun you're talking about, 苹果. So just burn this into your memory, size, then other attributes, then the, then the noun. That's your blueprint. Now, let's talk a little more about that little particle from step 4, the. Honestly, if you only remember one grammar rule from today, make it this one. Think of the as the essential glue that holds the description together. It's the piece that links all the adjectives 大红色 to the noun they're describing, 苹果. It basically tells you, hey, everything that came before me is describing the thing that comes after me. Forgetting to use the is probably the #1 mistake beginners make, and it just makes the sentence sound wrong. It's absolutely not optional. Okay, so we've covered the characters, we've covered the grammar. But language, it doesn't just exist in a textbook. It's wrapped up in culture. And in Mandarin, the ideas of big and small go way, way beyond just talking about the size of an apple. These concepts are actually woven into the fabric of how people interact, how they show respect, and how they understand social hierarchy. So let's think about this for a second. How can these simple words for physical size be used to navigate something as complex as human relationships? This is really the point where a language learner goes from just speaking the words to truly understanding how to communicate in a way that's effective and, just as importantly, respectful within a Chinese-speaking culture. And this slide just illustrates the point perfectly. Let's look at these examples. If you call an older male friend or a colleague 大哥, 大哥, you're not saying he's literally your big brother. You're using 大 as a sign of respect for his age and experience. On the flip side, calling a younger female colleague 小妹, 小妹 isn't meant to be belittling. It's actually a term of affection, of familiarity. Then you have 大人物, 大人物, a big person. This has zero to do with their physical size. It means they're important, a VIP, someone with a lot of influence. And finally, 小朋友, 小朋友, which means small friend, is the common, sweet way you refer to a child. You see how da tends to elevate, and xiǎo can show affection or youth? So the really essential thing to grasp here is that using these terms correctly is a powerful social skill. If you're going to be living or working in a Chinese-speaking country, knowing when to use da to show respect to a boss or an elder, and knowing when xiǎo is the right choice, isn't just about good grammar. It's about showing that you have cultural intelligence. It shows you understand and respect the way relationships and hierarchy work. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. Everything from ancient pictures inside characters to the nitty-gritty of grammar, all the way to some really deep cultural ideas. So now let's bring it all together and give you the tools to start using this on your own. All right, here's that blueprint one more time. We've totally mastered the big red apple. So what if we wanted to describe a small blue cup? We just follow the formula. Size first, 小, then the color, 蓝色. That's 蓝, a rising second tone, and 色, a falling fourth tone. Then our essential particle, the, and finally the noun, 杯子. That's 杯, a high, flat first tone, and a light, neutral, 子, 杯子. Put it all together, 小蓝色的杯子. See? It's a formula. Once you get it, you can describe pretty much anything you can see. And so I'm going to leave you with one final challenge. Right now, wherever you are, just look around you. Find an object. Is it big? Is it small? What color is it? I want you to try and build that Mandarin phrase in your head. Or even better, say it out loud. A big white wall. A small black phone. This is how you take what you learn in a lesson and make it real. The world around you is just full of things waiting to be described, so what's the first phrase you're going to build?